You're listening to Ride Along, EMT School. I'm Mike.
And I'm Max. We're two students navigating EMT school, bringing you along week by week.
And I'm Jonathan, a paramedic bringing real-world perspective.
Join us as we share the lessons, challenges, and stories from EMT school, and hear insights from those already living the EMS life. Welcome to the Ride Along. All right. And we're here, everybody. We're here for episode 25.
Yes, we are.
Step back from that ledge, my friend. I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. I wish you would cut ties with all the lies that you've been living in.
Come on, keep going. They beg for
this.
Oh,
man. And if you do not want to see me again, I would understand. You ruined it.
I did.
I was in key.
I was fine. Well,
sure,
as in key as possible. I know you've all been waiting for that. You wish the singing would come back again. Send your emails.
You know what? We honestly have not had any emails asking us to sing.
I think they've been surreptitiously deleted by the person that runs said email address.
Nope.
I don't know about that.
Wouldn't have been surreptitious. I would have told you directly I deleted them. But
we do get some Facebook messages occasionally.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Speaking of emails, remember from last week, 100 emails.
Oh, yes.
Gets that individual right there to move to PA. And then we can be doing these things live, like all three of us at the same time in the same place.
That's true. We are mounting a campaign. Jonathan put no time restriction on this campaign. So
he did not.
We're going to mention this in as many episodes as we can.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there, if you want to see Jonathan, come to Pennsylvania and be a provider here in the Keystone State.
Yes.
Send us an email and encourage him to move into our area so that we could all be together. I think that would be swell.
I was thinking about something the other day, and it was inspired by the newest ink that is placed on you. I would like to get the logo tattooed on me somewhere.
What, the Ride Along logo?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool for the three of us to go to a shop together and all get tattooed.
We could make that happen.
Listen, I've gone 35 years without doing that, and then the last 15 without putting some sort of fire rescue ink on myself. I think I'm good, bro.
Well, the last ink that I got is a memorial tattoo to my stepfather. But me and my three brothers have the same tattoo,
which I think is awesome.
Great.
It was So my stepfather had a tattoo on his forearm of a duck that's like holding its collar and like pointing to itself going, "Who, me?" And none of us knew what the hell it was about. Like he always said he got it in like Manila in Vietnam, and it looked terrible. Like it was just black and like all bled out over the years, and like he was old.
It happens.
Mine's gonna look that way someday too. And so none of us really knew what it was. People thought it was like a Tweety bird or whatever. And I actually looked it up. Like I did some research, like we do nowadays. And I Googled things. And it turns out it was a scene from an old Disney cartoon movie called The Ugly Duckling. And there's a quick scene in that movie where the ugly duckling is asked to do something or whatever, and he's like, "Who, me?" And it's literally that exact scene. And that's what we found out was tattooed on him. So I found the scene from the movie, and that's what we used as reference to get our tattoos.
That's
very cool.
Yeah, and all of us got them in pretty much the same location. Mine's on the inside of my forearm, but it's on the same arm that his was on. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a fitting homage.
I think so.
Yeah,
that's a good nod. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've gotten a bunch more tattoos this year.
You have.
Yeah. I got 2 when I turned like 18 and then went like 20 something years without getting any more. So, and now this year I've gotten 3.
What I have is extensive.
Yeah. It's extensive.
Yeah. Both calves, my back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. In the summers, you have a lot of canvas showing.
I do.
Yeah. Come on, Jonathan. Be like us.
John. Be like us.
Come to Pennsylvania. Get tattoos. Ride on ambulances with us.
I definitely considering a tattoo, but probably not a ride along tattoo.
No.
Yeah. Notice I've made a lot of logos and companies and brands. I don't have any of those tattooed on me. But I might be convinced to do some.
I think it's generic enough as EMS, but it's not.
Well,
Which is what I like about it.
there's a new logo, by the way.
Which is sexy as hell. In
Yeah.
my personal opinion.
As a matter of fact, if anybody's interested, we have new shirts available at shop.bulletin.net.
Ooh.
Just put them up there today. So if anybody wants one of the t-shirts, and by the way, I went all inclusive. Like every provider level is now represented.
Nice.
I made some stipulations. I did some soul searching. I'm like, you know what? I do want to embrace our EMR brothers and sisters out there, and AEMTs.
Instead of shaming them.
Because I really do. I have a lot of respect for everybody who does this type of stuff nowadays, and I don't want to joke around anymore because they're great too. So there's EMR shirts, AEMT shirts, EMT shirts, paramedic, PHRN, and there's one I just made today that we're going to be giving as a gift to a couple of guests that we had on the podcast in a recent recording. That say flight medic on it.
Nice.
Yeah. So
now I have a shirt to work towards.
Exactly.
Right.
I got a shirt to work towards.
You do indeed.
We could even make a critical care one at some point.
It's definitely an option.
Yeah, you got to get critical care before you go flight, right? Usually,
depends, right? You could do critical care, or you could do FPC.
Okay,
right? That certification. So it just depends. Depends on what the company requires. A lot of them don't even require it. Yeah, you have to have a certain amount of time in the field and experience before they'll bring you on. But a lot of them now, they will give you a year or 18 months to get that certification. And it's kind of a benefit from what a couple of the companies I've talked to have told me. They can kind of show you what they want to show you. I would never discourage anybody from going to that, like take a critical care or a flight paramedic program or flight nursing program before they had a job, right? Having that certification. But the way that they explain it is it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't help you. And I think a lot of it has to do with what they're looking for, right? The right stuff when they hire for those positions. So, but yeah, it can be a benefit. But yeah, no guarantee.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I've been busy trying to get some shirts up. I mean, now that I've gotten nothing but time, with completing
is that
school.
what you have? Nothing but
God.
time.
Yeah. I just can't help myself. I mean, I was on the reason we're late recording this because I was on a call, trying to convince somebody that I should be a ski patroller, because I don't do enough already.
No, you need to do more. Obviously.
Yeah, that's my new gig, or the thing that I'm working towards. I'm not the best skier in the world or snowboarder, although I have like a lot more years of snowboarding under the belt. I think that's my next challenge to tackle, like self goal that I'm working towards is to get good enough to be considered like competent on skis, and then to pull some of these EMS skills into the outdoor setting and help people outdoors. I think that would be that would tickle my fancy a lot.
It sounds like it would.
Yeah. I mean, plus it's got a cool red jacket. Like, I know firemen get to wear cool outfits.
The patches and jackets.
But man, a red jacket with a white cross on it, you cannot tell me that isn't the coolest thing ever.
It's not.
It's not?
No.
What's the coolest thing then?
I don't know, but the Swiss flag Swiss flag is not what I would consider cool.
I mean, I would consider it very cool. Switzerland is a very cold country, and they need jackets. I don't know. No, I think it's I don't know. I've always thought it's a cool gig. And
I know overseas, like ski patrol is like considered like in Austria specifically, like those guys, there's like all this stuff they get for free. They don't pay tax. It's like a whole thing.
Oh yeah,
because like their lineage goes back, whatever. And I know my dad told me like that was one of those things. Like if you became ski patrol for Austria, like that was like
a big deal.
A big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in that country, it's a very big deal.
I don't know how big of a deal it is here, but it's a goal that I have, which, I'm working towards finding as many opportunities as I can to like use some of these skills.
Hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I will applaud you along.
Plus, it gives us more to talk about on the podcast.
It's true.
I can tell people how terrible I am at skiing.
So yesterday, I contributed to the student base by.
I did try go skiing yesterday. It was a crazy day. There was a bunch of snow that hit here in Pennsylvania.
We got a decent amount of snow.
And I went to one of the local mountains here, and it was absolute pandemonium. Like, it was terrible. There was a lot of deep snow, and then I've never skied in deep snow, so I was like, oh, I got to try and do this. I was awful. Like, I literally just fell over every 3 feet, and I was like, I thought I was getting better. No, it was one of those very humbling days for me.
Yeah.
Which I need every now and then.
It's like watching these guys go do like the forest skiing. Like, you are insane.
Oh, through the trees and the glades and stuff?
No.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. Very picturesque. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, stay tuned for more updates on ski patrol.
We miss Mike.
Yeah.
He's been gone now 6 months.
But that's doing things like this, overextending myself and learning new things are ways that I stay centered and keep my mental health in check.
It's true.
Which is not a forced segue, but a pretty good segue into the topic for tonight's episode, which is mental health and mental crisis, behavioral emergencies, and suicide.
None of these things seem to be slowing down. If anything, the pressure cooker seems to be ramping up.
Yeah.
So our need to be able to deal with these situations is only going to become more prevalent, it seems.
Yeah. And this is definitely one of those topics. It's like, we're pretty, like, we like to keep it light, right? Like we like to joke around a bunch, and obviously we'll probably do that some in this episode, but this is one of those things that has, it means a lot to us. Actually, all three of us lost a friend recently to suicide.
Yeah.
Somebody that we've all trained with and considered a friend. So I think this topic is very poignant and very very, very topical for us in terms of things that not only are we looking for as EMS providers now, but things that hit close to home.
It hits hugely close to home for me. So
So we don't have a sponsor for tonight's episode, but we do have a spotlight. It's one of those episodes we like to bring a little bit of profile to an organization or a tool out there that people should be aware of. Now, if you've listened to this podcast, you're obviously familiar with 911, like the numbers on the phone that you can press. Tonight, we're shining a light on another number, and that is 988. So if you're listening to this right now and feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or stuck in a place that feels impossible to escape, you're not alone, even if it feels that way. Help is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline connects you with trained counselors who are there to listen. Without judgment, without pressure, and without cost. You don't have to be in immediate danger to call. You don't need the right words. You just need to reach out, basically. So call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org. And if it isn't for you, but for someone you care about, save the number, share it. You never know when it might save a life. So, because reaching out isn't weakness. It's a step towards hope.
Yep. The people that work for them are absolutely unbelievable. I've had them in my home. They're amazing. They are special human beings, and there is a calling to that I think is not the average person. So talking to them, interacting with them, they're amazing. And the one thing that I heard one of them say to me that kind of rang true is suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is that perspective I have used more than a few times. So yeah, if you're in that place where it's dark and you can't see a light, like call.
Yeah.
Call.
Please.
And if you don't want to call strangers
Yep.
at 988, you please reach out to ridealongpodcasting@gmail.com, and
Absolutely.
we're there for you too, especially anybody who ever just needs a chat. We're here because we really think the more we all stay connected, the better the world's going to be.
For sure.
And if we can help somebody, we're here for you.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's what we're talking about tonight is mental crises and suicide and all the things that we have to look out for now that we're going out to people's homes and strange places and going to help people, because sometimes when we help them, it's their worst day, and their worst day can look,
Yeah.
to use a maybe an apropos word, a little crazy.
A little bit.
I mean, we don't really use that word anymore. In the world, like it's not clinical crazy, right?
Yeah.
But that's
not person first language when we're talking about somebody having a mental health crisis, right? So we have to think about the person.
Don't want to walk up and say, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
That's not a good way to start.
Yeah, no, because a lot of times people question whether they're crazy or not, or they don't want to be labeled as crazy for whatever they're feeling, right? So, yeah, definitely not a term we use or encourage the use of when dealing with people. Having a mental health crisis. So.
Yeah, I think mental health crisis or just behavioral crisis, like those are that makes I think it takes the kind of extra emotional value out of it, where it's like the derogatory term of crazy, right? Because we use it all the time for like, that's crazy, like
right. I think just encounter if you the simple question of, are you in crisis right now? Whether it's mental, physical, whatever, do you find yourself in crisis right now? I think it's a relatable term that doesn't necessarily put a finger on what you're asking.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
The big thing about a crisis, and we'll get more into it as the episode goes on, it's such a subjective experience. And it's one of the things that us as providers, and that extends to the people who work in social services, as well as the folks who work in mental health, and that extends over to our law enforcement partners and stuff like that. Our experience is very unique, and so what we would view as a crisis is not necessarily how somebody in a crisis themselves, right? That subjective experience. They don't necessarily see a crisis in the same way that we might, and we have to be mindful that our perception of a crisis is not necessarily what theirs is. So,
right.
But
yeah. So I think terminology is important.
Sure.
The way that we communicate about it, the way that we talk to each other about it, the way we talk to patients about it. We'll talk about that some as well in this episode. But I think using the terminology is key. And that actually kind of brings us to our medical term of the week, which is a term that I learned for the first time in this process of becoming an EMT when we went through this stuff in school. Like it was a term that on its face sounds like something that you would just kind of brush off. But it really had a bit more, like if you're using this term, like it helps kind of bring it home to something that has a deeper meaning, even a medical meaning of things that you should look out for. So the medical term of this week is excited delirium.
Is that where you're running around in circles, really excited? But you're a little bit delirious? Well,
delirious is another one of those words that, every time I've ever heard it in life was kind of like, it's synonymous with crazy, right? Like, again, we come around to those words where they've been thrown around and we've never really imbued them with like the clinical value or the actual scientific value of them. And same with excited. Like, I probably use the term excited every day, especially when I'm talking to my daughter. Like, hey, you're really excited right now. Like, calm down. But when those two things are brought together, it is a very kind of specific term that explains some symptoms and some attributes that we really need to be on the lookout for as EMS providers, right? So excited delirium is a life-threatening medical emergency. And it's characterized by three things. One, extreme agitation. Two, altered mental status. And three, severe physiologic stress. Those three things happening at the same time is kind of the culmination of excited delirium. Now, what do they really mean? Like extreme agitation. Now, some people might say extreme agitation is altered mental status. However, I would argue that, somebody can be in their right mind and still be extremely agitated.
Me on a daily basis.
Yeah, like irritable and yelling and aggressive, all of those things, that they do not necessarily mean that you are not in the right mind.
Right.
Because sometimes you have stresses in life that require you to act in those ways. Although I would probably make the argument that there's really never a time when those things are truly that effective, but it's still like those are natural human reactions, right? So something is exciting and agitating the person.
Yes.
The altered mental status is where we start getting into, they may not understand exactly what is reality right now. They may be misunderstanding things. There may be a disconnect between what the patient is seeing and what they are understanding about their environment. Or they just may not be able to make sense. All of those things kind of fall under that altered mental status. And then the severe physiologic stress, this is probably the thing that we're like trained the most to keep an eye out for. And that is like the body going into overdrive.
Yeah.
Tachypnea, breathing super fast. The sympathetic nervous system really kind of like driving things at that point. Tachycardia, elevated blood pressure, all of these things, all the things that we know that happen when the body gets really excited.
Yeah.
All of those things are going into overdrive, right? So these patients are often out of touch with reality, and that can rapidly deteriorate into cardiac arrest if not managed quickly and appropriately.
Right.
So that to me, when I was learning about it, like when I saw this as a key term of excited delirium, I was like, oh, that's super interesting. And it's basically because the body is running so fast, so hard. The brain isn't necessarily helping calm anything down. And it's just running at overdrive until the wheels fall off.
And at some point, the compensation is going to end.
Yeah.
One of the things, Mike, that is associated with excited delirium is often stimulant use, like illicit stimulant use. So potentially methamphetamine, potentially cocaine. Cocaine's kind of the big one that's associated with this. And so if you're listening and you maybe have a call at some point where somebody's used one of those illicit substances and they're exhibiting the signs of excited delirium, you should definitely think down that path, right? That this could be excited delirium. This is a medical emergency. And even to the point where excited delirium is an advanced life support call if you can get ALS support to come in and help you out, because there's certain medications that we can give, some benzodiazepines to kind of chill the nervous system out. But I do want to point that out, that excited delirium is absolutely an ALS level call.
Oh yeah.
To request ALS on. So if you're thinking about it, you should definitely give your ALS a call if they're available.
I would say, I'm probably anytime I see any sign of altered mental status, that's a big red flag for me to call ALS in general. Now, granted, there's some things that like we as the EMT side could help with in some of the altered mental status stuff, like oral glucose for hypoglycemia, but even something like that, like as they're presenting, I would probably I'd make the call and then, hey, okay, let's rescind that if the patient is improving, if need be. But like, you know, anytime I see an altered mental status, I'm gonna be like, okay, this is probably something that we should get an ALS provider in here for.
It's one of those things, like, we really don't have a whole lot that we do have, you know, some things we do for diabetics, but otherwise we really don't have a whole lot we can do to treat it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that it's something that we don't have the ability to treat, I think that automatically makes it that ALS designation.
Yeah. So, you know, while we're talking about excited delirium, Jonathan mentioned that there are some causes for it. There are some like stimulant use is obviously one of those ones, because that one is, you know, I think that one's particularly interesting because it's not only just affecting the brain, but the stimulants themselves may be, you know, sympathetic system, or they're stimulating the sympathetic system of the body and directly influencing those things. Instead of it just being the brain telling the heart to beat faster, those stimulants are doing it. Or they may be telling the brain to release the transmitters to make those things happen. But still, like the stimulant is driving a lot of that. You know, we're seeing, you can see things like confusion, paranoia is one of them.
Yep.
I've had, you know, the experience of seeing like paranoid delusions in family members with mental health issues in the past. That's an interesting one to see, you know, for the first time.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Or hallucinations.
They're really fun.
Yeah. Well, some people purposely induce hallucinations.
They do.
But when it just happens out of the blue, that can be a bit disturbing.
Yes.
You know, a lot of that agitation, the incoherent shouting, the raised voices, the overreactions to things. You know, even an increased tolerance to pain can be associated with excited delirium, because, you know, when you're in that state and, you know, you're not feeling your
nerves are not doing what they normally would do.
And I think another big one is probably the disrobing or like bizarre behavior. That captures a lot of things, but you know, also is one of those kind of signs of like, hey, this person is in crisis right
like
now,
if
right?
you're not at the beach or in a changing room, this is not normal behavior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if someone's taking all their clothes off in public, unless you're near a nudist colony or a nudist beach, like, this is not normal activity. And you should assume that if they're doing that, there's something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's usually like a flushing of the skin, right? People get a hot sensation or a warm sensation, and it's uncomfortable, or they feel like things potentially are crawling on them. Mm-hmm. Right. And so they want to kind of eliminate all the things. But yeah, I've seen that several times in my career where people, you know, have some characteristics of excited delirium. Maybe we're not all the way there yet. And they start disrobing, trying to become more comfortable.
Yep. And then, you know, like you said, Jonathan, there's a few causes. Stimulant use is a big one. But even the withdrawal from substances. So like withdrawals from alcohol can cause excited delirium. Of course, the kind of severe psychiatric illnesses that we'll talk about in this episode, things like schizophrenia, you know, bipolar disorder, those types of things can cause that type of delirium. Acute medical conditions. So even the things that we've talked about on this podcast before, like hypoxia. I mean, that is a huge driver of altered mental status. Is not having enough oxygen in your brain. Hypoglycemia, obviously, altered mental status, or head injury. Like, you know, those are all TBI. Things that TBIs. Who is it? Is it Sam Kinison? And Roseanne Barr, right? Like both of those are examples of people. Well, maybe not excited delirium, but people that have had significant behavioral changes after head injuries, or even you know, hypothermia or other metabolic metabolic acidosis. Those are all things that can cause excited delirium. But you know, more important than like what causes it or all of the different symptoms that it can present is the kind of takeaway that like you're seeing this patient at like if you're rating like sleeping as a 0 and the most, crazed, agitated, possibly aggravated, yelling person at a 10, these people are at a 12.
They are indeed.
And you're kind of surmising that like, hey, they're in this really heightened, agitated, delirious state. And the big red flag to look out for is if all of a sudden they get quiet. Like if all of a sudden it looks like they calm down or like it just kind of starts falling off a cliff.
Right.
That's a huge red flag physiologically, that their systems are shutting down.
Like their body can't take it anymore. And it's like, okay, we're done playing this game.
Yeah. And that's where it becomes a severe medical emergency and the things that we need to be looking out for, because that can rapidly progress into cardiac arrest.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's because the body just can't keep up with it anymore.
Right.
A good analogy would be, in an excited delirium state, it's similar to like people who overclock computers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They just overclock those processors and, your body's kind of doing the same thing, but you can only run at that high rate of speed for so long before there are negative effects. And that's exactly what happens when somebody starts to crash in this this excited delirium state.
Yeah. Like you can run a gasoline engine at like, I don't know, like 4,000 RPM for decades, right?
You run it at 10.
But if you rev that thing up to 10,000 RPM, head gaskets start blowing and pistons start shooting out the top. I actually don't really know cars all that well, but I think those are working as analogies.
No, the oil in the engine is that compensating factor. And once you've burnt through that, through heat, because you can't get enough heat away, like you're going to start wearing metal and then things are going to shear off and then you've got a broken engine.
Yeah, it's just not meant to work at that speed mentally and physically for a long period of time. And that's what it's causing. So the thing to remember here for excited delirium is that while, and we'll talk about this some in the rest of the podcast episode as well, this isn't just a law enforcement problem. Mental health, like mental issues, people behaving strangely or aggressively aren't just a law enforcement problem.
No,
it's an everybody issue, something that we can all help with in some way. It is a medical crisis with law enforcement support.
Yes,
that's what you need to remember. So this might be high stress. It'll certainly not be the easiest call. I would imagine it might be high risk because these patients might be a danger to you or themselves. And it may be high profile, meaning when somebody makes a lot of noise, when somebody behaves, the cameras come out, people pay attention. So these are all the things that you need to keep in mind, and not just for excited delirium, but for all of these things that we're going to talk about tonight, because they're high profile.
Yeah.
High risk and high stress for you and for patients.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought that excited delirium was a pretty good kind of starting point for what we'll talk about tonight.
Absolutely.
So keep in mind there are things that we need to do to handle things. There's clinical factors, ethical factors that we need to keep in mind, and legal factors too, which we'll talk about. And we're at the center of it. If somebody's having one of these crises, like the EMS professionals, they're going to be there, and we got to help.
You may not be the first person that's seen. It's likely to be a police officer potentially.
Yeah.
But you are going to be that segue from that person, their home, their family, to their care that they get. Like you're going to be the person that does that transport. You're going to be the person that helps help that person. So knowing these key indicators is hugely important.
Yeah.
And respecting how dangerous it can be for them, for you, it's really, really, really important, because again, the pressure cooker's on, and it's not getting any easier, any better from what everyone sees around them. So understand you're going to see more and more of these cases.
And I think one thing too, and Jonathan, I'm sure you can talk about this some too, is, and because we've had this discussion before, especially in these situations, not everyone's going to handle these well. Like
Right.
you might have partners in different emergency services, fire or police or bystanders, family members, whatever. They may not be handling this situation well for their loved one or for this patient. And it's our job to handle it well.
Yeah.
Like we have to. Like we have to do it for them. And which I not that I've done this before, but I try to mentally prepare myself for this. Because like we're their advocate, right? Like we have to be. That's our role. So I think it's a huge challenge, one that I think, I would bet it's not the zebra in terms of medical things. Like I'm pretty sure that it'll be something that regularly comes up in maybe not excited delirium, but mental health crises every EMS professional out there in all walks of life, in all locales, urban, suburban, rural, like it's going to be everywhere.
And I mean, I think it's kind of like, I think it's more likely going to kind of be like the domestic dispute for police.
Yeah.
It on its face can seem very simple. It can get very dangerous very fast. So keeping yourself safe, keeping your partner safe, making sure your partner's law enforcement are helping you. And again, looking for those key things is huge.
Yeah. So that's the medical term of the week was excited delirium. And so now we're gonna talk through the rest of the stuff that is obviously,
Yep.
just fun topics, right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
But what did we learn?
So number one is understanding the behavioral emergencies. Whether it's abnormal, unacceptable to themselves or others, dangerous or threatening. I think having those witnesses, either family, friends, be those people that can tell you like this is not normal for them, or coworker, this is not normal for them.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, you walking into it, you're not going to know. You don't know this person. You don't know their history. You don't know what they've been through, not been through, how they are in the norm. So having those witnesses there is hugely benefactor to you, because you're able to get an idea of who this person is normally and have an idea of exactly what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, I would say that like we as humans though do have a barometer for, I mean, maybe it's different in everybody, but like when somebody's having some mental crisis, right?
Sure.
Like, are they're super agitated for no reason, or they're screaming and nobody's screaming around them, or they're seeing things that aren't there. So like, there's some things that are obvious that are like, but it's the things that are slightly off of baseline that also are like, she is usually not this depressed, like, because some people are just morose, some people are kind of downers. And when somebody's like, oh, they're acting a lot more depressed than usual, that's really helpful to know.
Or this has been them in the past and it's getting to that point again, like that history of it, of this person has a history of depression, anxiety, fill in the blank. And those people knowing them well enough to say, hey, like we've seen this before, and the last time this is what happened. That pertinent past history that you have to go through. And again, those people that are on scene are going to be very helpful for that.
I would say so.
Talking with bystanders can be a helpful thing, but I would always caution people to, take what they say with a grain of salt. Sometimes the thing that caused the crisis for the person is the interaction with whoever might be the bystander.
Yeah,
very true.
And it's not that it doesn't change the fact that this person's in crisis, but sometimes getting that person out of that environment can be a helpful strategy, where maybe they're willing to come talk with you when those folks are not around. Oftentimes we do like in a safe way, we do a little bit of a divide and conquer, especially if we have the resources to do so, where one of us or a couple of us stay with the person who's in crisis, and then we get somebody else to kind of, hey, will you give me some information and tell me what's going on? Then we'll meet back in the middle and kind of discuss what we've found. I personally always like to, if I'm able to, and if the situation warrants it, I like to talk to the person who's in that crisis first and hear what they have to say.
Yep.
It's gonna not necessarily, predisposition me to thinking one way or the other, right? I'm gonna kind of hear what's going on directly from them first, and then I can get that information from that bystander.
Gotcha.
Again, not every situation. Some situations, it's going to be a thing where I have to talk to those bystanders or those family members and get that information because of the state of the person in crisis.
Right.
But yeah, so I would just caution people, definitely, use your family members as bystanders, but also recognize that, we all have family members that sometimes we don't get along with. And sometimes things get escalated, and then, it's just one of those things that it could be a situation like that. And somebody, sometimes somebody else is always, or sometimes somebody else is able to calm down quicker in a situation than the other person. So you really, like I said, just if you're talking to family members, take it with a grain of salt. And use it as a data point for your decision as a healthcare provider. Don't blow them off, but listen to them, but don't let that be the entire story.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So
I think this is an interesting point too that you guys were kind of talking about, because while the environment or people in it or the interactions with others, we use the word cause that may have caused this incident or their mental crisis. But I think it's interesting to kind of talk about things that might be either triggers versus causes.
Yep.
Because, there's a multitude of causes that could lead to these altered mental statuses or abnormal behavior. And they kind of fall into a few categories, but those categories aren't necessarily triggers, right? Because something happening to somebody, seeing something, smelling something, hearing something, having a terrible interaction, or just, tripping over a sidewalk and skinning their knee and seeing blood, like a post-traumatic stress disorder type thing.
right.
That could be a trigger,
Sure.
but the cause is a bit deeper, or can be deeper.
I mean, it's just fireworks, 4th of July, and beginning of the year. There's a lot of people that they bring in support for that because they know that for them, that is a trigger for them.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people that don't, because they've got to be the tough guy, and then they suffer through it.
Well, yeah.
So you can see both sides of it.
So I think this is a good example of a trigger being a loud noise, fireworks, the cause being PTSD,
Right.
Right.
which falls into a category of psychiatric causes.
Yep.
Now, are there other psychiatric causes?
I'm sure. So we have. Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can think about when we're dealing with somebody who's in immediate crisis, that is not just whatever happened to trigger that crisis is not just it is not necessarily the sole thing that has caused this thing to happen. Oftentimes it's the final straw. And that's what brought us to this point is
Yep.
a buildup of a lot of different things at different severity levels, for the person having that crisis or in that crisis. And it's a great point, right? We look at the cause versus the trigger of the crisis. So you may not immediately realize the cause, but what you need to understand is that something has triggered this person, into that crisis. And
but if we're talking about, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and the thing of it is, and this is, the kind of the final straw may not seem like a big deal to us,
Right.
but
of course,
what we have to understand is that was the final straw to a laundry list of things that probably were going on before that moment.
Right. And what I'm trying to get to is that the triggers can be anything. And there are some that are going to fall more in line with a typical pattern, right? But the cause that it trigger, it comes from it influences from a cause. That cause, in some instances is psychiatric. Like, are there different, like we've all heard of psychiatric conditions, right? So like a few of those could be something like.
So you have anxiety disorders?
Anxiety is a big one. Like just the idea of being in a stressful environment can cause somebody to go into an anxious state and have that kind of overreaction.
Then you have in anxiety. It's such a broad reaching like topic because it can be something as simple as lack of self-worth that just beats on you, and then eventually you become anxious about everything around you.
Right. Yeah.
You have depression.
Depression's a big one. Like
which can be your environment, but it can also be your health too. It could be the way your brain works.
Yeah. Like these are the traditional kind of like things that we think of as mental disorders, right?
Yep.
Like the bipolar disorder.
Yes, which is frightening to watch in action.
Yeah, and some people, have it worse than others. Are more extreme than others. Some people also that nowadays I believe the thinking is that it's actually kind of all related to the ADHD stuff. Like ADHD can also have symptoms of almost excited delirium at times too.
Oh, if you've never personally witnessed the difference between a child that actually has ADHD, the severity of it, and the difference between them medicated and non-medicated, you will see just a perfect example of this is what excited delirium looks like. And I have seen it firsthand, and like all of the things that we checked off in that list, it was to a T.
Yeah, I think the difference is excited delirium is like the highest level of that excitement, where the body is on the verge of breaking down. So like obviously psychiatric causes can get there.
Yep.
And there's two other ones. What are
schizophrenia?
No, well, yeah, schizophrenia is one of the psychiatric causes. But if we're kind of going broader than just psychiatric, what are the other like categories of causes that could cause?
We have medical causes.
Medical. All right, like what?
So we have hypoxia, which you talked about, lack of oxygen going to the brain. Hypoglycemia.
Yeah, hypoglycemia could be one of them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all of which interact, all part of the RAS, right? Like we learned about the RAS a few weeks ago, like the reticulating activation system, right? Like all of that can cause altered mental status.
Yep.
What other type of medical things? Like
Sure. So you've got head injury, which oftentimes, what we're really talking about is that traumatic brain injury. So you've got that, strokes, seizures, infections, right? Sepsis can be a huge cause. I've seen a lot of folks, that have severe UTIs that they will present with odd behavior, right? And altered mental status. And we talked about that when we were talking about sepsis in that episode. Different exposure to certain chemicals, like a toxic exposure to a chemical that can cause things. Lead is one of those chemicals. Mercury is another one of those toxic metals that people can be exposed to that could cause, some sort of altered mental status or bizarre behavior. And then temperature extremes, right? Like we start to get hypothermic, right? And people start to become a little bit delirious. And then the opposite direction, right? We get into heat stroke, and people have the same sort of things. Our bodies, specifically our brains, do not like to be too hot or too cold, right? We have that Goldilocks zone, that just right area, and operating outside of those parameters, the brain doesn't like that and can exhibit some odd behavior. And then there's just generalized delirium, right? Just somebody's not acting right. So
the brain is such a picky bitch.
It really is.
Like, I don't have enough oxygen, so I'm going to shut everything down. I don't have enough sugar, so
it's very needy.
Yeah, like what the hell?
It's the neediest thing.
It really
ever.
is.
So we have so causes are kind of fallen into a couple different categories, right? So psychiatric, we just talked about medical. I think the third big category that we had learned about was substance related, which
sure.
I mean, you tell me, Jonathan, would you say that in your mental health experience, would that be the largest of those categories? That
I would say that there's a lot of contributing factors, right? So somebody may have a baseline diagnosis of a mental health disorder, but then as a coping mechanism, they may have a comorbidity of a substance-related disorder as well. Oftentimes they go hand in hand. And then
like I've met several people that have a mental disorder that they have managed through like prescribed medications that unfortunately they progressed to self-medication through other types
100%.
of drugs and then had issues controlling their symptoms because it's not a controlled it's not a scientific process at that point. It's hey, I just smoke weed every day. And then, sometimes that mental disorder, that mental health issue breaks through. Right. So like that kind of substance to your, like it goes hand in hand. Like often you will have those comorbidities, but like especially like you mentioned stimulant use causes like, people to act, I hate using this word, but it's what we think of, like somebody to act crazy, right? Like, and some of those, the really odd drugs, things that we don't even hear about much anymore, like
K2,
PCP, angel dust, K2, crocodile. Do you guys remember when crocodile was making the, like,
No.
Have you never heard of crocodile?
In Jersey?
I think it was a Florida thing, which I mean, explains a lot. Because Florida's crazy.
Florida has a large section of crazy.
Yeah. So I think I don't know what category it fell into in terms of drugs, but it was one of those ones where it was like somebody took crocodile and then like bit off somebody's face on a highway.
Bath salts. I remember.
And bath salts kind of fall into that category too.
They call those designer drugs, and so oftentimes it's a chemical compound that they often change the makeup of to skirt laws, right? So it's like, okay, they'll have one version of this chemical compound and it becomes illegal. Well, then they change the molecular structure of it, and now they can sell it again, and it may even be worse. The effects may even be worse than when they had it before. But yeah, like a lot of that stuff is sold in gas stations and convenience stores, and it's not good stuff. But yeah, like it's twofold, right? Like we have the actual like intoxicating effect of the substance. That can be an issue, but then we also have the withdrawal effects that can be a factor. With stimulant use, there's usually a crash following that high, and that can cause issues as well. With methamphetamine, I've seen a lot of folks where they're really, really up for days at a time. They're awake, they can't sleep, and then when they finally crash, they will do some odd things, and those behaviors will manifest. So there's a lot of like crossover, like I was saying, between mental health disorders and substance use disorders and
medical disorders too,
and medical disorders, right? A lot of times there's crossovers, and one of the big things is people will self-medicate because it's a coping strategy. It's not a positive coping strategy. It does have negative effects, but they will utilize those substances to cope with whatever stress they're experiencing. And I would go so far as to say that it's not illegitimate. Like a lot of these people suffer from the effects of mental disorders or life or pain or all these things, like, all of these kind of releases exist out there.
Yep.
And people are going to find solace in whatever they can,
Sure.
or, I'm not making excuses for using drugs or, but just to say that, it's a reality of life that people sometimes need things to help get through the day. And that is just as, likely to be seen as anything else. But,
one thing about that, and you're right. Like, substance use, and I'll like I said, because they go so hand in hand at various times as coping strategies, right? Folks in our profession may not think very highly of that, but at the end of the day, what we have to consider is we have a job to do in regards to getting these folks help. So regardless of what has necessarily got us called there, we have to help these people as best we can.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. We may help them 100 times and before they're actually able to start to try and work on these issues. I just would encourage folks to have an empathetic mindset towards these people having these mental health crises, and especially if there's substance use related to them. Because at the end of the day, these people don't want to feel like this. They don't want to utilize these substances this way.
No.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I've seen it in my career where providers will get a bad attitude and it can be very frustrating. Right. And that's the big thing. Like, I acknowledge how frustrating it can be to deal with. But at the end of the day, this is something that we have to do as part of our job, and we should do it to the best of our ability.
I agree 100%. And you could be that 100th person that then gives them the chance to become a better version of themselves. So like that does exist.
And not to belabor this particular thing, because I think it's just hugely important in what we do in terms of disassociating ourselves, like our own personal judgments from the job.
Sure.
I would go as far to say that even if that person calls 100 times over and over again and they just will not help themselves, it doesn't matter. You have
it doesn't change
exactly.
you have to be able to disconnect from your own. I'm not saying that we shouldn't judge other people. Yes, it's better to not do that. It's more. You're a better person if you don't look down on others. However, the reality of humans is that we do that.
Sure.
Like, just
it's almost impossible.
It's human nature to have an opinion on someone else's behavior, right?
Sure.
So, but that's what being a professional is being able to disassociate our own personal, annoyances or judgments from other people's behaviors, because we're there to do a job and we're there to help them, regardless of who they are. Like, 100%. that is the calling, right?
Yep.
So, I think this discussion's really, really interesting, because this is like the ethical side of help with with mental disorders. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just a final point. I would not be doing my job if I didn't acknowledge how frustrating it is for us as providers. And so I do want, if you're listening,
of course,
if you're listening, I acknowledge how frustrating it is. And a lot of the times myself, even myself, right? I haven't always had a great attitude at different points. But being able to, if you're a provider, being able to find a constructive place to put your frustrations is something I would encourage you to look into doing in this instance, right? Like, cause that's what, when a provider has a bad attitude about this, it often relates to fatigue and burnout and things like that, right? Compassion fatigue is a thing. And so it's whatever you got to do to find a silver lining to dealing with this particular type of call, I would encourage you to do, because, having somebody turn their life around and then talking to them later after they've done that, it is so rewarding, because and you could be that person that actually does make that difference. It's super rewarding to see people make something of their lives after they've had issues like this related to substance use or a mental health crisis. And, So I would encourage providers to maintain an empathetic attitude towards the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've talked about causes.
Yeah.
The different things that can lead to these type of mental health crises. But what do we do? Like, what are we as EMS providers or students? I often forget now that we have, like, I feel like we've gone through such a journey so far that, like, it's so funny. Like, I think of myself as an EMS provider now, which we are. And like, it was just a few short months ago where we were like, oh, we were just students. Like, like, so I, to encourage all those students out there, you'll get there. Like, you're give it a few months and you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is like, I feel like I'm part of the discussion, part of the team. Right. What do we do? Like, what is this?
We have to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
if we can, and get them the care they need.
Right. And I think that really starts at one point, and that is
your patient assessment.
Well, but before patient assessment.
Well, but that's part of
what happens before the patient assessment.
Especially with what we're talking about here is your scene size up.
Yeah, like before you even talk to a patient and you look at them, where are you going?
Yeah. So what is your call? Like, are they talking about anything where you think it could be dangerous to you or your crew?
Yeah.
And that scene safety thing, that BSI scene safe, like that thing that we kind of just phone in, like, these are the reasons why it's so important.
Yeah.
Getting that window, the windshield view of what's going on, if it's outside, or for that matter, like as you're stepping in, talking to the police that are on scene if they're there. Make sure that you're safe. Make sure your situation is safe.
Yeah.
That you're not walking into something that's going to hurt you or your partner. Because if you guys get hurt, guess what? You can't help the next 10 people.
Yeah.
That are in line.
Like if you get a call, like for a mental health call, which I've seen come in. Patient is acting aggravated in Walmart or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're there and you do not see the cop car outside.
Stay in your ambulance.
Well, either that or call and see
something.
Where they're at. Like maybe they're inside, but like you should be thinking about that from the onset of like, okay, so we're in a situation where we're getting clues that there could be a dangerous situation. Yep. Start asking the questions there. Start thinking beyond the, hey, I need to jump out of here and start rushing into a patient. Because we all want to. I know I will fall for that myself too.
Well, that's what the running boards are for. So that you being the partner can jump out of the window, climb on the running board, grab a hold of that, the mirror with the pack already on, and be able to just at a run come off the ambulance.
Your ambulance has running boards?
No,
mine doesn't. But
to your point, Mike. I mean, we start this whole process of scene size up as soon as we get the dispatch information.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And numerous types of calls. I start asking for resources before I'm even on scene. And this mental health crisis could be one of them. Because there may be something in that dispatch information that says, I think we might need a little extra help to, potentially make the scene safe or deal with whatever, if there's been a suicide attempt, to deal with whatever hazard there might be there.
Right.
For us, right? We may need the fire department to ventilate something or to, ventilate some exhaust fumes or something like that. It all just
like somebody in a garage or something like that.
Right. So I mean, it's just don't be afraid to ask for those resources ahead of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, like this is just to say that like the thought of emphasizing and making sure that you're safe, your partner's safe, starts before you even get there. Right. Using those clues. Mm-hmm. And just starting the process early, but it doesn't mean that we may not find ourselves in a situation where we have not gotten any information to prevent us from going into a more dangerous situation. So like, okay, we're past the scene size up. We're now getting into the actual room. Mm-hmm. What are the things that we're looking for beyond, aside from obviously the first thing that we're usually assessing is the ABCs of a patient. We're usually kind of locked in on that. Okay. Are they breathing? Are they circulating? do they have an open and patent airway, right? Okay, yes. No exsanguination happening. Great. That's usually the first thing that we're looking at. But immediately after that, what should we be looking for, especially if somebody's in an agitated state?
Sure.
I mean, you should make sure there's nothing that can hurt you.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the thing. Like you're taking that kind of scene awareness from like, oh, let me think about this before I get in the room. Now you're in the room, and especially on these calls where you may have somebody that is more likely to be dangerous, right? And I'm not talking down on people with mental disorders. It's just saying that like that is the reality. They can progress to agitation or violence. And that's a sign that was okay. Well, we're going to take some precautions, make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a dangerous situation, right? So, looking for things, big one, weapons.
Yes,
like that. That's an obvious one. Like, hey, we don't want any of those around when somebody's acting agitated. But other things that could then become weapons, like improvised things, bottles, crowbars, tigers. I don't know.
You got to watch out for the tigers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just in India. If you go to Texas,
What was that dude? The Tiger King?
Tiger King.
Joe Exotic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously got some mental health things going on too.
100%.
If I showed up in his house and there's a tiger not in a cage,
he's friendly.
I'm gonna pass. I'll go out to the truck and get the police here.
If they're in an agitated state or something and they're not really don't have their faculties, is there a loose dog in the house?
Yeah. I mean that's
a no-go.
Yeah.
Like, can you please, the dog has to go outside or has to be closed in a room somewhere where they are sheltered, because the last thing you want is some dog deciding it wants to chew on you because you're moving its owner.
Yeah.
Or adhere to its owner that's agitated. If we find one knife on a guy, you are going to find more than one knife.
That's true. Yeah.
Knife guys carry more than one knife. We just had a call for a guy who sliced his finger open, and we said, okay, the knife is inside, right? And he said, yeah. He said, do you have any others on you? Yeah. He had like 2 other knives on him. Like you're going to find more than one knife. So like make sure that you're not bringing weapons into the enclosed space of your ambulance.
Yeah.
This is a bad deal.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I'm gonna quote somebody who may be on this podcast right now, who I took an excellent class from, where in the patient assessment phase, there's a mantra that goes through my head every time I look at somebody, and it's hands, hips, holsters. Where I'm making sure there's nothing in that patient's hands, there's nothing on his hips, the belt line, and then if there is something that obviously holds a weapon like a holster, I'm making sure I'm addressing that. So,
Yes,
right.
That's one of the. Did I get that right? Is it hands, hips, holsters?
Hands, hips, holsters.
Jonathan?
That is correct.
From Iron Forge Consulting Group. If you're interested in, what is the name of your class?
Active threat medicine.
Active threat medicine is a great class.
That's a great.
I still
name for a
say
class.
that in my head every time I look at a patient. But no, it's a great way to program yourself to look for threats when you're assessing patients. So we're looking for those types of things, right? As well as the other stuff that is really pertinent to a mental health crisis, signs of substance abuse, other things that could be hostile in the environment. Like, is this person reacting to somebody else that could be hostile?
Yeah,
or something
because it might not be
on?
them.
Is law enforcement there? Is that situation becoming something that is aggravated or untenable? Like, you have to, unfortunately, we live in a world where that could be the case, and you need to be aware of that too.
Sure.
One of the things too, Mike, is, as we talk about, our scene size up and scene safety, I want to point out that the statistics are there that those who are dealing with mental health crisis or mental health issues, they're not any more likely than anybody else in the general public to be violent. But where we have to be thoughtful and mindful is this person's not in their right state of mind in this moment, in this crisis. And so while you're not a threat, you're there to help them. They may perceive the actions of you or the actions of someone else as threatening, right? Because they're not in their right state of mind. They may be having a delusion.
Yeah.
Or hallucination. And so that's one of the reasons we want to harp on, scene safety. But I do want to emphasize again that, these folks are not any more likely to be violent or commit criminal activity than the general populace. And in fact, what we find with those who are that have mental health issues, they're oftentimes more likely to be victims of crime because they don't have as strong of a support system, and it puts them in a position to be taken advantage of. So that I've seen that directly play out in a lot of these calls where something has happened to these folks because they put themselves, or they were in a situation and they were taken advantage of. So it's just something that we have to keep aware of and be mindful of.
Yeah.
And then along with that whole idea of being safe is keeping yourself in a place where you have an exit route.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, don't get to your point where you're cut off from the ability to leave this room. That's huge.
Yeah. There's tactics that we should keep in mind.
Yeah.
Like knowing where your exits are is a big one. And then making sure that there's nothing in between you and those.
Yeah.
So patients don't get to go in between you and that exit. Nobody gets to go. Like you should be able to freely leave if you need to. It's our biggest asset in terms of being able to save our own lives.
Right.
The Adidas exit, as they say.
Yes.
Is get out of there if things go south. But yeah, so scene size up, patient, primary assessment, looking for the ABCs. That's obviously there. And then, is there anything that we're looking for in the secondary assessment that is kind of unique or pertinent to like mental health crises?
Well, there's AVPU. Are they alert? Are they verbal? Are they pain responsive? Are they unresponsive?
Sure. I mean, I would say
so. Are they orienting towards you? Or are they responding to what you're saying? Or are they responding appropriately to what you're saying?
Yeah,
and
assessing
that goes into GCS too.
Yeah, assessing all that stuff. But anything physical that we'd be looking for in patients as well. Like, I mean, some of them we talked about before. I assume like so head trauma. Like, if we're suspecting some sort of mental health crisis and altered mental status, that's probably one of the things that we're gonna, try to maybe even specifically look for is like a traumatic head injury.
Right. And then with substance abuse, you have track marks.
Yeah, that's one of them. Or like just some of the things that are signs of like, a elevated sympathetic system, like, the sweating, the tremors. Signs of stimulant usage, or even signs of overdose, like, the substance abuse stuff. And then, I think in that discussion, the interview with the patient, that's where we really start kind of getting a sense of what is their reality that they're seeing right there. And I think that's the big one of like, what are they seeing? Are like the alert and oriented questions.
Right.
Those are where they really come into play. Like, do you know who I am?
Yeah,
like, do you know where you are? What day is this? So those really, I think, will help in that situation in terms of figuring out like, what is this patient's mental status?
Sure. That leads us right into how do we communicate with somebody in crisis, right?
It's a good question. I think we should yell as loudly as possible just to make sure that they
clap our hands
totally, like that they understand exactly what they're saying. No.
Pull a flashlight out, put it right in our eyes.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some.
No.
There's definitely some do's and don'ts to this process of communicating with somebody in crisis. Having a calm and soft-spoken voice that's reassuring.
Oh, that puts you out, Max.
Yeah,
you'll be shocked.
I
know.
Max can be very
how verbal judo I am when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Max can be very calm and soft-spoken. He and I've had some chats offline.
I know. I'm joking.
So really being aware of your posture. We don't want to have like a threatening posture to them. And then sometimes people in crisis don't want you crowding on top of them. Right. And there's no reason that I have to be 2 feet away from somebody if I can be 5 feet away and they're more comfortable, if they're willing to have the conversation. And if somebody were to ask, hey, can you give me some space? What's the harm in giving them some space if it's safe to do so? Right.
Sure.
So
And
So,
usually that translates to safety for you too.
Right.
Like the farther
Exactly.
away people are from you.
right. We want to, in our culture, making eye contact with folks can oftentimes show sincerity. But in this instance, it can, if you're staring too intently at somebody, right? The key word being staring, that can make people uncomfortable. And we also have to be mindful of some cultural differences as well when making eye contact. How do we even like start to approach these folks? That's kind of a question that a lot of people ask. One of the jobs I had when I took a leave of absence from fire rescue, I worked as a crisis intervention team coordinator and facilitated training for a crisis intervention team program for law enforcement and other law enforcement adjacent partners. And so I basically taught cops how to deal with folks in crisis. So we had this thing from the crisis intervention team training. We called them the 4 plays. They're really, really simple tactics you can use to start to connect with somebody. The first thing is, and it's going to sound really, really dumb when I say it, but introduce yourself. Right. And depending on, your comfort level of doing this, it could be like, hey, I'm firefighter Aldridge, or I'm paramedic Aldridge, or I could say, hey, my name's Jonathan. I'm a paramedic, with wherever you're a paramedic. And that depends on your comfort level of doing that using your first name. But I like first names because I think that it is just a more personable approach. But not everybody wants to do that. I notice with our law enforcement partners, they like to their nameplate usually has their last name and a first initial, so they'd like to just give their last name. Hey, I'm Officer Aldridge, or hey, I'm Deputy Aldridge, that sort of thing. But introduce yourself. That's super, super important. I've been on calls where I have forgot to introduce who I am because I just got ahead of myself. It happens. But in this instance, it's super, super good to be able to put a name to a face. The other thing is, right, the second play in this is to ask their name, right? Again, it sounds kind of silly, but we're trying to connect with this person. So we want to know what their name is. And to that, right, we don't feed into delusions necessarily, but if somebody wants to be called something other than their name, their given name, we can be respectful of that in that moment, because, like I said, again, we're trying to connect with this person.
Oh yeah.
So
what is a name anyway, other than a thing that somebody calls us?
I deal with a lot of people like they have a given name. And that's not the name that they go by. So oftentimes, they'll, hey, what's your name, or what would you like me to call you? And that's something I'll say. That third play, this is kind of where we get into a little bit of the nitty gritty of how do we connect with these people. You want to express what you're able to observe and hear. You look angry. You look sad. You look upset. You sound pissed off. You sound angry. And here's the thing about expressing what you observe. If you're wrong, they're going to tell you, no, I'm not sad. I'm pissed off.
Right.
Okay, awesome. You're pissed off. Tell me about that. Tell me what's got you pissed off, man. And I like to, we're not averse to using foul language occasionally. But I like to mirror my language, especially if somebody directly says something. Oh, I'm fucking mad. Okay. Well, what are you fucking mad about? Like, I know that sounds a little odd, but it's one of those things that allows you to, again, connect with this person. They can directly see that you are listening to them. And that's what one aspect of this that we're trying to get through to them is, hey, I'm here to listen, and I'm actually listening. And so when they start to open up and tell you, well, this is what I'm pissed off about, we're going to go to that fourth play and we're going to summarize and restate what they're saying. Hey, I hear you're saying that you're pissed off because you've been evicted from your house and you think your landlord's an asshole. And that's why you're pissed off. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I'm pissed off. Hey, these 4 plays are, what did I just do? I just got to the direct heart of what the issue is, and that's put them in crisis. And again, these are things that take practice. There's some wonderful trainings out there, crisis intervention team training. If you ever get a chance to take it as a provider, you should definitely go take it. But yeah, again, these are just some simple strategies to start to talk to somebody and connect with them while they're in crisis, and then direct them to some additional resources, because us as EMS providers and our law enforcement partners, we're not the end all be all for this person. We're the person that's sent there to kind of stabilize the crisis for the moment, right? To make sure that they're safe. As we go forward, we're going to take them to somebody else in a hospital, in a psychiatric facility, that's going to provide them some better resources. They're going to have they're going to be able to get an even more full picture of what's going on with this person and provide appropriate interventions for them that may be more long-term than we've got during the duration of our, emergency call. So, but yeah, so those are the 4 plays, and those are some absolute positive ways to interact with somebody. There's a couple of things we kind of want to avoid as well, if we can. Big one, arguing with somebody.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's
no.
Now's not the time to listen, this person might be wrong about everything that's in crisis, but now
doesn't matter.
The time.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, you don't have to be right.
Yeah, it's not pertinent to getting them the help that they need.
Yeah, exactly.
And along with that, challenging their delusions, right? That's
well,
also part of it.
Well, it depends on the delusions, I guess, right?
Well, no, I mean, it's
like if they think blue monkeys fly, I understand they did in the movie,
right?
But there's no need to challenge that right now.
I'm being facetious.
So here's a positive way that we can not necessarily challenge, but we can kind of relate that we are still hearing them. It's like, listen, I know that you feel like there's a man sitting in the corner over there that's staring at you. I don't see him, but I believe that you see him, and I want to help you, right? And so what did I do? I didn't challenge them. I didn't tell them. I just said that was something that I was unable to observe, but I wanted to help them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So super, super important not to challenge those delusions. And then there's a couple physical things that we want to maybe avoid. Making sudden movements, rushing up to the patient, and this final thing. This is super important. I want to really emphasize this. If you're listening, we do not promise anything that we are unable to deliver to this patient. Person might ask, "Hey, am I going to jail?" And if law enforcement was involved, I can't promise that. What I can say is, listen, buddy, right now my concern is that, you seem to be in crisis, and I want to make sure that I'm able to help you and do anything medically that you need, and we get you to the right resources. They might say, well, can you promise me I'm going to get to go home at the end of this interaction? Hey, I can't promise you that. Right. So we don't ever want to promise anything we can't deliver, because it ruins our credibility. Right. Yeah. So just being upfront and honest and direct with somebody, they may not like the answer, but they're going to appreciate the honesty.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think the one thing that really resonates with me that you had mentioned, Jonathan, is if there's only one thing that you can hang your hat on, it's the acknowledgement of the patient. If you use that as a mantra of okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, I hear you. The acknowledgement of what they're going through, I think, is a good kind of home base for kind of centering yourself around talking to them. I find that difficult sometimes because I always want to interact and have a two-way conversation. And
sure.
But in that particular instance, when you just don't know what to say, I think that's a really great kind of home base, if you will, to kind of come back to, is all right, I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I understand. I'm going to surmise it and kind of, validate what you're feeling and what you're going through. Right.
Yep.
So you brought up something really good when you just phrased it a way you phrased it, right? We want to be mindful of our language. Great point that you were making, but we want to be mindful of using the phrase "I understand," and maybe you do, but in the moment, that person doesn't feel like anybody understands them. So that's one of the things that I'm a fan of is using the words "I see where you're coming from." Or I hear what you're saying, because I'm not making any sort of judgment on that situation. I'm just telling them, I can see what you're saying. I can hear what you're saying. I see why you would think that, right? Like I'm acknowledging their feelings in this situation, because the reality is we don't understand it. I sometimes still have to catch myself with that and using that kind of phrasing. But yeah, I want to, that's a little pitfall that we can find ourselves in when dealing with somebody in crisis. So I just want to encourage people to, be thoughtful about their language.
I hear you.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah. So, I do think there are some simple do's and don'ts, and obviously it's a skill that, you have to exercise and really play with.
Just the body language thing. Like, I'm a Sasquatch. So like I make an effort to get down to a point where I am lower than them or at the same level as them, because I know I'm an opposing individual. I know I can be terrifying, as I've been told. So like whatever I can do to make them more comfortable, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And using soft language, being familiar with them, all that helps.
Getting down to their level was one of the things that I took away from this class of like, no, I every time I interact with a patient, the number one thing in my head is like, hey, don't stand. Like if I stand, I'm taller than everybody. So like, get on a knee. And I went and bought knee pads so that I wear them under my EMT pants.
By the way, the knee pads that he bought are the bomb.
What are they?
They are Klein.
The Klein
elastic knee pads.
We should put that on a tools of the trade.
100%.
Yeah. No, it's I just because like I make it a mission to like kneel down. And I have bad knees, but it's just one of those things. Like you learn those techniques to kind of like help interact better with patients. Okay, so we've talked about mental crisis, right? The kind of mental disorders, some do's and don'ts. I think that was excellent advice on ways that we can approach it. What about the kind of like outlier from this? The like you said, the permanent solution to the temporary problem of suicide. It's the one that and so in recent history with us losing our friend, it's one of those ones where I've come to grips with the fact that it is impossible for a rational mind to understand the irrational behavior of suicide, right?
Yep.
We rack our brains about it. It's not something for us, like everyone's going to have to come to grips with it differently when it happens in their life. But I think beyond the kind of processing it and understanding it, especially if it's somebody that there are things that we as professionals have to look out for and keep in mind when we're dealing with patients that are in this crisis, right? And hopefully things that help give them solace and or a chance to recover from that. From that state of where they think that they do want to hurt themselves, or giving them the chance and the care to know that there is a reason, and there's more than a few reasons to kind of keep going, right? But in the moment, that's our concern as EMTs, as paramedics, as EMS professionals, is like, what are we looking for and what are we doing in the actual encounter? I think one of the biggest ones, one of the things that we really need to look out for are the risk factors.
Yes.
And those are like things that we need to identify to go, hey, is this patient more at risk of either hurting themselves in the immediate future or somebody that I can help with flagging as somebody who may potentially be suicidal, so that they get the help that they need down the line.
Yep.
Right. That's I think really the biggest value here.
Yeah.
And there's a whole host of them. I will say there's one that is far more than any of the others. That is the biggest kind of risk factor / red flag of somebody who's suicidal. Do you guys know which that is?
History of attempts.
The history.
Yeah.
Like if they've done it before, like I think that the statistics are staggering of like somebody, if they've attempted suicide before, how likely they are to attempt it again.
Yep.
So like if somebody ever mentions that they have tried to hurt themselves before, that should automatically be something that you are paying close attention to.
There's also some other red flags with that too, is like things like cutting. And it's an outward thing that sometimes you can see. And a lot of times it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Like,
and if you're seeing that, you should immediately be on guard and understand if you're seeing history of cutting, then you should be immediately flagging in your head, okay, this person needs to be watched for attempted suicides.
Cutting
like
is
self-harm.
Yeah, cutting's an interesting one too, Max. Like, it is both. It's a sign of something larger going on for sure, and and oftentimes, what happens is people are so caught off guard by the cutting because it's such a extreme response to stressors that people beg the person who's cutting to stop. And what we have to think about with cutting is, while it's not a positive coping mechanism, it's got some negative effects, right? It is a coping mechanism, and oftentimes when we talk about like cutting and suicide, that person definitely needs help. But dealing like making them promise not to cut anymore actually can be sort of a dangerous path to walk down, because now we're taking away that coping mechanism from them. So it's just one of those things to be mindful of. Yes, we absolutely need to address that, and it can be a precursor to larger things going on and things that could happen in the future. But just keeping in mind that when people are cutting, that's a coping mechanism to deal with the stressors.
And something too that, like, when we say they're red flags or things that we need to be aware of, like, we should also stipulate that, like, we are not mental health counselors.
No.
We are not psychiatrists. No. We are not psychologists. We are not social workers. Like, whatever the case, like, all those people that are professionals and able to help with this type of stuff, we are not them. So if we do see somebody that is performing some form of self-harm, it's not to say that we are there to talk to them or to convince them to not do it.
No,
it's to say that we should be aware of it. And, if we're seeing signs of like, hey, this person, like, let me ask the question to see if they need help in this instance. Right.
Yep.
And that's what these things lead to. So like the other risk factors of like depression, like if somebody looks visibly and totally devastated and depressed, if they've recently lost somebody, like the woman who's lost her husband, or the guy who's lost his wife, if they're obviously like in a spiral of substance abuse, if they straight up say like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't feel like I belong on this earth. Like, those are the types of things that, are obvious. Like, they may be cries for help. They may be over exaggerations, right? Some people might have a flair for the dramatic, but those are all things that we need to take into account and go, hey, what's the next thing that I should do off of this? And really that should lead to like us asking, with compassion and straightforwardness, like without judgment, of something along the lines of, hey, do you feel like hurting yourself? Like, do you have a plan? Like, is this, do do you have the means to do it? Like these are the things that we may want to ask in the moment without kind of saying you're wrong for doing it.
Right.
Because again, we're trying to connect with them. We're trying to empathize with these patients. But those are things that we can be aware of from either a safety standpoint. Like, do you have the means to do it? Well, yeah, I have that gun over there that I plan to use. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that you don't have access to that, or I'm going to tell the police officer, hey, you may want to remove that. Those are things that we could use in the immediate future to help, safety. But also, like, hey, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Okay, well, in this ride to the hospital, we're gonna, I'll be here to chat with you and to be a human with you and to connect with you. But that's also something that I'm going to pass on to the other professionals at the hospital to say, hey, listen, this patient is they expressed a risk of suicide. Yeah. So that can help them stay safer later by making sure that people are aware that they may be a suicide risk. So it's not to say we're there to solve the problem. No. But we're there to help make sure that it doesn't, that they have time and that they're safe.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I don't think in any of this is anything that we can fix. Like this isn't something that we even have the ability really to treat. All we can do is be that caretaker that gets them to the level of care that potentially could help them.
Yeah.
And Mike, you make a great point about being direct about, asking if somebody is suicidal. It's super important. When I was teaching crisis intervention team training, we would tell officers to be very direct, and we would ask these kind of four things. Hey, do you have a plan to hurt yourself or anyone else, or to kill yourself or anyone else? Right. And to be very specific about that verbiage, hey, are you planning suicide? Because oftentimes what has been told to me is that when people think about suicide, oftentimes they don't think it's something that's going to hurt. Right. So when we say, hey, are you planning on hurting yourself? That's not as direct as we necessarily need to. But now, so we add those additional things in there to make sure we check all those boxes, and people will be honest with you. And, one of the things that, we in our show notes that we're talking about, and I totally agree with, asking about suicide does not increase the risk or likelihood that somebody is going to attempt suicide. Not at all. So ask. It's an uncomfortable thing, and it's not an easy thing as a provider to do. But you gotta ask because you could be saving this person's life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think suicidal patients are, or patients that may be at risk of suicide. Let me put it that way. That's a tough call, right? Like one that I don't think anybody is truly prepared for. That's why there's these people out there that are professionals, that are trained to deal with this type of stuff. But, it's something that we might encounter and that we can bring a little bit of care to. So it's important to kind of think through this stuff and be aware of it. Now there's one last type of patient that we'll talk about this before we get into our tools of the trade section. And that is, probably the one that none of us really want to ever deal with. The one that is, I don't want to say problematic, because obviously if we're talking about mental health disorders and crises, it's not necessarily a patient's fault if they are combative or violent, but there's always the chance that this could be something that we encounter. Right. What do we do, guys? Like, I mean, it's one of those ones that always pops in my head of like, it could happen anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody with a mental disorder or disease or condition. It could happen anywhere. But like, what do we do? What are the considerations for running into a hostile patient?
I mean, for one, again, we said it a million times, like scene safety, like make sure you have law enforcement backing you up. Again, don't isolate from your partner. Make sure your partner is with you. It is really important. Have an escape route. Again, use the police. Avoid anything that can be considered threatening, whether it's a knife or a bottle or a table. But when it comes down to it, your safety is the most important. And if you get to that point where you have no other options, you may have to use some kind of restraints.
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, you have to be aware. And if things look like they're going south, bail.
Yeah,
just get out of there. Right. Like that's like your personal safety is paramount and your partners. Sure. And then you can't help anybody if you get hurt or compromised or injured. Right. So I know we talk about that a bunch, but that's the number one thing. Number two, for me, I know in this situation, the number one thing to rely on is the law enforcement partners that we have, right? It's why we have a close relationship with them. Yep. It's why we, have that camaraderie of being in emergencies. Like, everybody's a public servant, right? A first responder. And like the hope is that they're there too. And I will say on 99% of the calls I've ever been on, the police beat us there or they're walking up to the door with us.
I have yet to be on a call yet where we do not have cops either, like you said, already there and they're telling us what they already saw or they're literally rolling up at the same time.
Yeah. So the what I will say is, it's totally okay to defer to their expertise in this matter.
Yep.
Like that is what I would prefer to do in that. And I think that's kind of the status quo, if you will, of doing this is like making sure that, it's okay. You don't insert yourself into a situation that you don't need to be in. Right. That's what they're there for. That's what they're trained for. That's what they have the tools and the capabilities to do. All the other things we've talked about are things to help get yourself out of a situation if you need to, like being able to leave, not having the patient in between you and an exit. Those are important things to remember too, so that your police partners can come in and do their job. Right.
Sure.
And you not get in their way. So that's really important. But in the instance that patient is so combative, they want to hurt somebody, or they're just not in control of their own faculties, and they are a threat to others. I mean, then the situation moves to restraints
them. And this is something that really surprised me that it was even. Honestly, I was surprised it was in our scope of practice because I wouldn't have expected it. I really expected that was something that was purely law enforcement. That we may assist in some guidance with whatever condition they have, but the fact that this is in our scope of practice surprised me.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like if in any situation where you're dealing with people that may have an altered mental status, you may, in some instances, have to deal with restraining a patient from either harming you or themselves. Like it's a reality.
Yeah.
But the thing is the police are way more capable and trained in dealing with that type of stuff. So ultimately, if somebody's getting restrained, it's likely going to happen in that way, where the police are handcuffing them and restraining them physically, due to whatever laws or procedures they're allowed to do. But if it's us, there are some tools. There's some, and there's some ridiculous stories that people are like, oh yeah, well, we just tied them down using bed sheets, which is totally not secure, or safe for patients, I would say, because
you just grab the bed sheet and or use the tool.
Well,
but soft. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. Soft restraints and
soft restraints are a thing.
Yeah.
Like a tie down tool that has a soft cuff that goes around the patient's appendages, and then a waist strap that gets tied down to the bed. If any of this comes into play, I think the biggest takeaway for us when we went through this part in class was follow the protocols. If there are protocols in place for this, if it's within your scope, you need to follow those to the T, right? Yeah. For the same reasons we talked about before in the upfront section, that it's a high profile type of thing. You will be under the microscope if somebody is being detained or restrained.
Right.
There is a high chance of it going poorly if somebody getting injured.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in here that you just want to make sure that you're being safe about and covering your own butt, right? But there are rules that would be in place for this type of stuff. it is the last resort.
Yeah.
By far, it needs to be necessary for the safety of providers and for people in the area. And it cannot be done alone. Sure. Maybe even with two people. Like you need multiple people to be able to do
there's
stuff.
Even with two people, I don't think I would ever even attempt it. If you've ever tried to hold someone down, that's not that's as a joke, or you're playing around or doing it purposefully as like a training tool. Like two people trying to restrain someone specifically, any limb is just a disaster.
Yeah. And then the last thing to kind of keep in mind here for patients that may be under restraint is as much of a moral obligation we have to keep patients safe when they're in our care, we even have to go more so when somebody is restrained, because they do not even have the ability to leave. They are literally being restrained by the system, right? Whatever we're being a part of right now. And we've seen this in high profile cases in the past, like things like Eric Gardner in New York, and somebody being restrained and then not being able to breathe, right? Sure. I can't breathe. The kind of classic phrase. So in that instance, you have to be hyper aware. You have to be making sure that you're not only waiting for them to tell you when, you're actively looking to make sure that they are safe, because they are totally and completely in your care at that point. Yep. You have to, right? So we're making sure that we're constantly monitoring the airway, especially breathing, circulation, and mental status. Because if those things are deteriorating, we need to make sure that we're not influencing those.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have to advocate for your patient because they are dependent on you at that point.
Yep.
So if you're not advocating for them and their well-being, it could go really bad really fast.
And so we're talking about soft restraints, and that's kind of the option on the potentially the option, depending on your protocols, for the BLS provider, and maybe the ALS provider as well, depending on the situation. But then on the ALS side of the house, we have what are known as chemical restraints, where we use different drugs to not completely sedate somebody, but to calm them down. To a point where they're no longer a danger to themselves or anyone else. And it is that there's been some high profile cases where providers did not provide that, that assessment or monitoring of vital signs after they administered that chemical restraint. And it's not been a pretty thing. In some of the cases, it's even been very neglectful on the provider's part. So I would encourage everybody, if you're going to have to use some of these techniques, again, like Mike said, you're going to want to follow the protocol to the T, and you're going to want to make sure you completely and fully document every aspect of this call.
Documentation's huge.
Yes.
In all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Writing everything down.
Yep.
Everything from soup to nuts, every interaction, whatever words they might say, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen, right?
Yep.
So that is huge in dealing with all these mental crises. Make sure that you're writing all this stuff down.
And rounding this back to the beginning with the idea of bringing ALS on board for altered mental status, what Jonathan just described is exactly why it is you should have ALS moving, because any one of these situations can turn into that potentially.
Yeah.
So the ability of the ALS provider to get them to calm down chemically, it's only going to help them. It's going to keep them from, being potentially getting into and be more traumatized than they already are.
Could be. Yeah. So, one last thing just to mention about patients that are either combative or threatening, or that are being restrained. Let's put it that way. In your state, or jurisdiction or whatever, there may be some local form of an involuntary hold that you should be aware of, and what the procedures and protocols are for that. I know that here in Pennsylvania, we have a thing called a 302. Right. The 302 is essentially the involuntary hold. It is something that the law enforcement officers can do, and it works in conjunction with them basically restraining somebody for mental health reasons, or I don't know the actual details, but there are rules and regulations you have to follow based off of those, and then what you're obligated to do. You should know them for your location because it's going to be different.
Sure.
It's going to be called something different in different places. Like, what's it called in Virginia, Jonathan?
Yeah. So, like we were talking during the pre-show, in Virginia, you have an emergency custody order, which is kind of like the initial thing, and then the actual involuntary commitment is the temporary detainment order, and so that's that component, or those components in Virginia, and then in North Carolina we have voluntary committals, and then we have involuntary committals.
Sure.
Yeah. So, obviously, voluntary being like, hey, I've made the choice for myself to, seek help. But the problem with that is like they have to have capacity to consent to that. And if they don't have the capacity, it's going to be an involuntary commitment order. So, but yeah, so every state is going to be different. That's a great point, Mike.
Yep. And the last thing that we will just mention, which I was reading around on some best practices for dealing with patients that are in crisis. I think this goes for most of these situations. And it's kind of just a good general practice. Try never to be alone with a patient that is in some form of mental crisis.
Right.
Emotionally disturbed, mentally disturbed, like whatever might be happening or whatever their behaviors are. I think in general, it's probably better for us not to try and be alone with patients, really for any reason. But especially with patients that have, a crisis going on, try not to be alone with them. A, for safety purposes.
Yep.
But B, the bigger one is because it's been known in the past for patients that are in crisis, that are emotionally or mentally disturbed, to make accusations on providers for improper behaviors or sexual abuse or all those types of things. So it's just to say that make sure that you have a partner with you. Make sure you have like a law enforcement officer with you if there's somebody that's exhibiting, signs of emotional distress or those types of things. Because, at the end of the day, it's safer for everybody, and it's not going to detriment anything to have somebody there to back you up in terms of the story or to tell what happened.
Exactly.
So,
100%.
I think that's a good one to kind of try and keep in mind.
Yep.
But yeah, so we've talked, like there's so much in this kind of like mental crisis type of discussion.
Yeah. It's there's so many different offshoots and tangents you can run through. But I think we did a good job of covering the basics of it.
Yeah, I think we went through pretty much everything. Yeah. Well, probably more than what they went through in class.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think mental health, or this particular mental health emergency thing, was like,
it was a rough class.
Half of one class.
It was a rough class
combined with a bunch of other stuff. So
it's another,
and there's a lot of nuance.
Yeah, it's another thing that we do very poorly in our profession, is to prepare providers for the mental health crisis. Call. And again, that's, I'm glad we were able to kind of like get into the minutia a little bit of it.
Yes.
Because I got pretty much none in my EMT class all those years ago. So I'm glad we could, talk to our listeners about it and really get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, if anybody wants a pretty hard hitting and raw and real feels type of moment in popular culture dealing with like EMS and mental health crisis, in Code 3 there is a scene where the paramedics are dealing with a patient who is in some sort of mental crisis. He's probably schizophrenic. He doesn't know what's going on. He's disassociated with reality. He's calling himself the president of the United States. And there's a very powerful scene in there, which there's a lot of emotion and providers doing exactly the things that we were talking about here in terms of identifying with the patient, acknowledging them, connecting with them, and doing all the things to advocate for that patient that we hope to be. So I encourage there is some realness in that comedy movie that I would say is going to surprise so many people that have not seen it yet. And if you've seen it, I bet you know what I'm talking about.
I still haven't seen it.
I know you haven't. It's you've neglected your homework for 3 months.
I've been horrible. I need to make a precedent.
I had to make Jonathan watch it on my couch.
Yeah, and I couldn't stay here for that.
No, but it was a good time.
I'm sure it was.
But yeah, so I would say the thing that has given me that my biggest takeaway from this in schooling is remember that you're there for them.
Yep.
You have to kind of step aside from yourself and what you think should be happening, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're there to make sure that they're safe. You're there to make sure that they're getting care that they deserve and that you're getting them to the right resources.
Yep.
So, regardless of how you feel about how they're acting, because at the end of the day, it probably is not rational, and
yeah,
you just need to make sure that they get the care. But yeah, so fun stuff.
Yeah.
You dying over there?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
I think you've gone through an entire bag of Ricola.
No, Halls.
I'm
out of my Ricola.
Ricola.
The combination of Ricola and Halls together, one in each cheek, is
you're like a squirrel with menthol. But yeah, so I think that leads us into this week's tool of the trade, which some people might say is a bit of a disconnect, but I think it's very close.
But I mean, in a lot of these cases, you could have a patient that loses consciousness.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at our medical term of the week, right? Yep. Excited delirium. Excited delirium is known as a thing that is a medical issue that can lead directly to a crash, if you will, of the body. And what do we do? What happens when the body shuts down? Well, the heart stops beating and we stop breathing. So this week, what is our tool
Airway adjuncts is the tool of the trade,
which comes into play if somebody codes because they need protection to stop the tongue from covering their airway, right? Yep. So I think it's a direct play off of what could happen after excited delirium.
Yeah, and we have two different kinds that we're covering: the OPA, the oral
pharyngeal.
Thank you, airway, and the NPA, which is the nasopharyngeal airway.
Mm-hmm.
Close, pretty close.
Also known as the nasal trumpet.
Yes, it is. So just
terrible music.
It is. Well, it depends if you tune it right. Just a brief history on starting with the OPA. It was first introduced in 1908 by a guy named Frederick Hewitt, and evolved from a metal tube to the plastic Guadel in 1933 and the Berman in 1952, and we still use both of those today.
A plastic what?
Tube. From metal tube to plastic.
What was the word that you used? Plastic Guadel?
It's called a Guadel.
Is that the shape of it?
I don't know. It's the name of it.
Okay.
And that was 1933, and another type is called the Berman in 1952.
It terrifies me that they used metal NPAs.
Well, I'm sure it was comfortable going in. I'm sure it didn't do any trauma at all. But the funny thing is, we still use those two models today. Those are the baseline for what we have now. Modern ones being made of disposable medical grade plastic in a wide range of colors and sizes, which is a really important point. So with both of these things, sizing is important. You're going to size the oral from the tip of their mouth to their jawline. And you're going to size the nasal from the tip of their nose to their jawline. And it's really important you get the right kind. I mean, there are certain ones that are kind of standard, like this is the size you default to. But if you have a patient that has a particularly small palate, then you need to account for that.
Mm-hmm.
With the OPA, it has a hook shape. And the idea is that you pass it into the mouth with the hook going up against the hard palate. And then as you pass the hard palate, you rotate it, and then it attaches. No, it doesn't attach them, but it presses against the tongue, keeping the tongue in place.
I think it's a soft palate.
Isn't that the hard palate up top?
I think it's a soft palate, right?
Is the roof of the mouth a hard palate or a soft palate?
Hard palate.
Oh, is it a hard palate?
So.
What's a soft palate?
That's your tongue.
Oh, okay.
But you basically put it in kind of upside down. So it kind of looks like a J shape. And you put it up with a point going up towards the hard palate, which is the roof of your mouth. And as you go in, you twist it, and then that shape holds the tongue in place.
Right. So in effect, because like what we may be remiss in doing right now is describing what these things are before talking about like how they're inserted, right? So the NPA being a tube,
yes,
with a flared.
Well, I haven't gone there yet.
Oh, but I'm just saying, like, if somebody's imagining these things, the NPA, the nasal pharyngeal airway, it's a small thin tube.
Yep.
With a flared base that gets inserted to the nose.
Correct.
And then the OPA is a plastic.
Looks like a J.
Like a plastic hook or a plastic J that is about the length between your thumb and your middle finger. And then that thing gets inserted into the mouth. And like you said, it gets inserted so that it's initially pointing up. And then as it gets far enough back, you rotate it. And then it hooks behind the tongue, keeping that from falling back to close off the airway.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And on the NPA side of things, as far as a little history, it was first developed in 1870 by a guy named Joseph Clover. It initially involved a nasal tube fixed in the nostril, as well as a funnel-shaped rubber tube for delivering anesthesia. In 1958, Hans Carl Wendel is credited with introducing the specific modern, soft, flexible nasal pharyngeal airway design, and that has that trumpet so that when you insert it into the nose, it stays in place and doesn't fall further into the nose.
Which I would imagine is a big deal.
That could be a bad thing, like, oh, we lost it.
Losing anything inside of a patient, I imagine, is a big deal.
Now, unlike the OPA with an NPA, it's generally practiced that you should use some kind of a lube so it passes through the nose easier. If you don't have some kind of lube for it, you can use the person's spit, blood. There's a lot of different things you can use, but if you can more gently pass it through, you're better off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say you should probably just store a small disposable, like single-use thing of lube with every NPA that you have in your kit.
Agreed.
And I will absolutely do that till the end of time, because the one code I've been on, we pulled an NPA out of the jump bag, and nobody in the room could figure out where to get any lube. So that NPA did not get inserted.
Yeah, and I mean they have a lot of these come with a little packet of jelly that is physically attached to the packaging.
Yeah, it's like it's surgical lubrication, so it's like a water-based lubricant.
But what these do is this keeps the airway open. So if your airway becomes compromised, we have the ability of getting air into your system through a BVM or.
Yeah, I would say not even necessarily compromised, but if you are unconscious, I think that's the biggest use case for these particular adjuncts, right? Where both of them kind of fulfill the same role. They secure or ensure that there is some sort of passage of air happening behind the tongue as it's kind of fallen back, or gravity is affecting it towards the back of the mouth. Yep. Right.
Now there's some contraindications. Ooh, big word. So if someone has head trauma, face trauma, then generally you shouldn't be using any kind of an NPA.
Right. And the reason why that you should not use an NPA for cranial trauma is...
You could be passing air into the brain.
Well, you could be inserting it in places where it shouldn't go.
Where they can get an embolism and then do more harm.
Well, yeah, it's just to say that you don't want to poke their brain with a rubber tube. Right. You know, if there's a hole in the back of their, like, you just don't want to, facial trauma or like cranial, like suspected trauma to the cranium, you don't want to use an NPA.
And an NPA for the most part can be tolerated by someone that's conscious. Not the case with an OPA. And also,
why is that? What is the specific
reason?
Reason?
Start a gag reflex.
Right. So the reason an OPA is not well tolerated is because it's a big plastic thing that goes into the back of your throat. Yeah. Right. Like, stick your finger back there and you'll see very quickly why we have a gag reflex.
Yes.
Like, that is essentially what you're doing with an OPA.
Yes.
An oral pharyngeal airway. You're taking basically a hooked finger and sticking it behind the tongue to pull it forward without using your finger.
And
right?
then if they vomit, they could aspirate it, and that's just
right.
bad
Yeah,
stuff.
you don't want gag reflex.
No.
So if they have no gag reflex, our default is usually to put in. This is the traditional EMT, curriculum. You go to the OPA.
Right.
If their gag reflex returns and they're not tolerating that,
Take it out.
take it out,
And then insert an NPA.
and you can put an MPA in, right? Just to make sure that their tongue isn't falling back and closing off their airway. What are the sounds that they make if they're and the only reason I'm picking you on this, Max, because I know you haven't finished your written exam yet. So what type of sound and respirations are a good sign that you should put in some sort of airway adjunct if someone's unconscious?
It's not stridor.
No.
No, it was a gurgling noise.
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
It's the one that we make every night.
Oh, snoring.
Snoring respirations.
Snoring respirations.
Or ding ding ding. That's one of the ones that you will see on a lot of the questions. Is if you hear snoring respirations, what should you do?
Yeah.
You should put in an airway
Because
adjunct.
basically it means that your tongue is starting to fall against.
It's exactly what
Yeah,
it means.
your
It's
airway.
you're breathing and it's making your tongue flap against your airway. So sorry for the little bit of trivia
You're
there,
fine.
but I'm going to pick on you for the next month until you pass your exam.
they have almost exactly 30 days to consistently get on me about questions.
And we
for the
will.
National Registry.
Have you been
I
doing your
know you
practice
will.
test?
I have been. I have been. Although now I heard that there was a practice test attached to the book EMT Crash Course, which I purchased. I'm not sure it's in it or what, I don't know what the deal is, but someone that had took their test said it was very helpful.
Yeah, the EMT crash course one is apparently more akin to the actual NR EMT exam. I haven't seen it, but I'll
Neither
take a
have
look
I,
at it
but I will
to
be.
see how well it matches.
Yep.
They're all good. They all keep your head fresh
Yep.
in the game. So make sure you're doing them.
Yep. But yeah, so there you go. Airway adjuncts.
Airway adjuncts. An important one. I will say, if and I don't know if I'm breaking from the traditional EMT like curriculum / protocol on this. If I had only one,
NPA.
it would be the MPA, because I feel like it fits pretty much all the roles that both do.
Yep.
Although I will say that it seems like the OPA is easier to put in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like you don't need lubrication. You got a big old hole that you could stick it in and turn
Yeah.
it. But the NPA seems like it fits more roles, especially for patients that are that may or may not be conscious but still have some sort of gag reflex. I think it's more universal, and it's way smaller. Like you can fit in more places.
I mean, you can fit a full size range of NPAs in a much smaller space than OPAs.
A full range of OPAs, yeah.
Yeah.
Time and place. That's the whole name of the game when it comes to those two things. Time and place.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
All right, so that's our tool of the trade this
Yes.
week is oral adjuncts, or
Yes.
sorry, not oral.
Oral
Airway
adjuncts? Airway
adjuncts. Yep.
Anyway.
But thank you, sir.
Yes,
and
sir.
then that brings us to our final segment of the evening, which
Student
is
tips.
the student tip of the week
So-
with Jonathan Aldridge.
our student tip of the week, as we've talked about mental health emergencies and people being in mental health crisis, something that we want to keep in mind is that as EMS students and as EMS providers, we are not exempt from that sort of thing. That's the statistics show that most folks who get involved in some form of public safety come into it having already experienced some sort of trauma in their life. And one thing I want to encourage all of you as listeners, as students and providers to do is to take care of yourselves as far as your own mental well-being. Understand that we because of what we do in this profession, we see things that are not normal to the general population, and so there may come a time where we need to reach out and talk to somebody. I want to encourage you that I have, at different points in my career, needed to talk to people, and so I reach out through appropriate channels, whether that be through peer support, employee assistance programs, or whether that be through a mental health counselor. Or even a crisis line. There are specific crisis lines for fire rescue providers where the person you're talking to, they're a trained peer, but they are also a fire rescue provider themselves, and so you can talk to them. And so one thing I want to encourage is, if you are having a hard time as a provider, that you seek out and ask for help. It's a really, really difficult thing to do, to ask for help, but there are people out there that want to help you. Even if it may be in your immediate circle, you're not finding as much support as you'd like. There are people out there that want to help you and want to support you. I want to help you through whatever crisis it is that you're going through. So please, 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 if you are having a mental health crisis and you're a provider or a student, do not hesitate to reach out and ask for help. Because Max and Mike and I have all had this conversation, especially recently. We would much rather talk to folks about what's going on and them be there to tell us than them not to be there. So that is one of that is the biggest student tip, is we've got to take care of ourselves before we help anybody else. And if you're struggling, please, please, please don't struggle alone. Right? There are folks out here that
we're here to struggle with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the student tip of the week.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't think we can end this any better than that.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Remember, everybody, you're not in this alone.
Nope.
Whether or not you're going through school or anything tough in life, you got people, and let us know if you need help. We're here for you.
Yep.
And you know what? Just want to say thanks for taking the ride with us, and we'll see you next time on The Ride Along. This podcast is for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice or official EMT training. Always follow your accredited instructors and local protocols.
Heartbeats racing in a